Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call a regular board meeting session here. We'll get everyone to stand for the pledge and a moment of silence. Tonight our colors will be presented by the Como High School Navy Junior ROTC. Dr. Chasson, would you lead us in the pledge?
Present. Colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, do. Colors. Ready. Cut. Pride. Face. Forward. Heart. Left.
I want to thank the Como Navy Junior ROTC. Go Navy. Opening comments from our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Lafayette. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and everyone in attendance. I would like to begin my opening comments by announcing the formation of a new advisory panel. I am currently seeking applicants for the Teacher Advisory Panel, or TAP for short, so that we can tap into the ideas and expertise that our teachers have regarding practices, policies, and procedures. The panel will consist of a diverse group of dedicated educators from throughout the district who will provide an educator's perspective regarding important topics that impact students and teachers in our district. The goal of the Teacher Advisory Panel is to collaborate with and provide insight to my office and staff to assist in making better informed decisions to move our district forward. Applications and more information can be found on the Lafayette Parish School System website. Pre-K applications for the 2020-21 school year opened on January 22nd. We currently have 433 applications complete or in process. Families can go to www.enrolllafayette.com to apply. On Thursday, February 6th, our Early Childhood Department submitted our application for the Head Start Early Head Start Grant. If awarded, the grant will provide seats for approximately 690 children, infants through 4 years old. Congratulations to the District Teachers of the Year. This honor goes to outstanding teachers who have been selected by their peers and evaluated by district administrators and community leaders. Every year, educators and administrators in each public school in Lafayette Parish vote to select a Teacher of the Year. The winner of each school then is eligible to participate in the district competition. Our district's Teachers of the Year are, at the elementary level, Catherine Diker, kindergarten teacher at Marshall B.O. Elementary School. At the middle school level, Elizabeth Grossi, math teacher at Broussard Middle School. And at the high school level, Pamela Sorensen, 10th grade English teacher at Karen Crowe High School. I'd also like to acknowledge our district Students of the Year. This is a great honor for outstanding students who have been nominated by their teachers, selected by their school, and evaluated by district administrators and community leaders. Our Students of the Year are elementary school, Camille Romero, 5th grader at J. Wallace James Elementary. Middle school, Ali Habib, 8th grader at Paul Grove Middle School. At the high school level, William Romero, a senior at Lafayette High School. The speech and debate team for Como High School continues to excel in competitions both inside and outside of Louisiana. The Como High School speech team recently took 11 varsity members to compete at the Barkley Forum for Speech and Debate at Emory University in Atlanta. This is one of the oldest and most prestigious speech and debate national invitationals in the country. With over 200 schools from across 30 states, the 65-year-old competition is a showcase of the best of the best. Como High School students broke records during this competition, having more finalists than any school in the 65-year history, the most finalists in one event, and senior Rashawn Leday added 2 more championship plaques to the 2 championship plaques he won last year, being the only student in Barkley Forum to win 4 total championship Silver Key plaques. And finally, congratulations to the schools who placed in last weekend's Garden Initiative, School Garden Initiative Cook-Off that was held at David Thibodeau STEM Magnet Academy. Winning 3rd place was LEO Judice Elementary School. 2nd place went to Charles Burke Elementary School. And coming in first were the students from Green T. Linden Elementary School. This concludes my comments, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trosclair, and congratulations to everyone. Next item will be 2.1, discussion and/or action concerning pending litigation in the matter of Chris Perroy versus Lafayette Parish School System et al. Suit number 2017-1404, consolidated with suit number 2017-1473, Wallace Tronhon versus Ace American Insurance Company et al., and suit number 2017-1532, David Bro versus Christina Romero et al., Division G, 15th Judicial District Judge, Parish of Lafayette. I'll accept the motion that we go into executive session.
Mr. President, I move that we go into executive session to discuss pending litigation in the matter of Christopher Roy versus Lafayette Parish School System et al.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second that we go into executive session. Any board member comment? Public comment? Call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
We get everybody to take their seats.
Mr. President, I move that we return to regular session.
I'll second.
We have a motion that we return to regular session. Any questions, board members? Public? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion passes to go back into executive session, to regular session.
Mr. President, I move that the board accept advice of counsel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second that the board approve council's recommendation. Any board member questions? Any public comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion carries. Next on our agenda is our informational items. 3.1 is the presentation of the 2020 board meeting calendar. It is there for the information of our fellow board members and the public. It shows all of our meeting dates, budget meetings, and special meetings for the entire 2020 calendar. And these dates are subject to change, but this is our meetings for the year. Are there any board member questions? Any public comment on the calendar? This was just an information item. Next up is 3.2, information concerning certain trees located at or around 404 Bellcrest Drive and 203 Indigo Drive in Lafayette, Louisiana. Mr. Broussard?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Give me the opportunity to allow the residents to speak on this behalf. If got a couple of phone calls about some concerns about some of the residents, some trees that are draped over on their property, and I told the residents we'll allow them a moment to speak. But before they do that, I've asked Ms. Garner and Mr. Woodlaw to send an arborist out there, and I understand that either today or yesterday they've gotten a letter from the finding, and I don't know if they're ready yet, but if you would give them an opportunity to speak on their concerns.
Not a problem, Mr. Broussard. We'll be glad to. If you would like to come up to the podium and speak on this information item, and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Thank you. Okay, if you could state your name and press the microphone. Thank you.
Connie Logan. I live on Indigo. We have several residents that have issues with maintenance of the grounds of our adjoining neighborhood. We're on one side and the other person is on the other side of the neighborhood. We're at Karen Crowe High School. They are on Live Oak side. We'll start with mine. I had an arborist come out, actually a couple of arborists, well actually 4, but I have documentation from 2 arborists. This one right here saying that the trees need to come down. If anybody wants to look at this. I have pictures of the trees. The arborist says that the trees are they're dangerously draping over into Ben Logan's yard at 203 Indigo Drive. These water oak trees are in a bad health, and the Logans have had numerous branches fall in their yard from them. This is a dangerous situation which Karen Crowe High School needs to obey Louisiana laws and amendments and remove these threatening trees immediately. And I have the statute. I have pictures, and then on December 29th, we had an occurrence at the house next to mine, and the gentleman is here in the audience tonight. This is Steve and Pat Reagan, and Mr. Steve was enjoying a Saints game. It was on a Sunday afternoon, and relaxing in his living room, and he heard a pow, and when he went outside, he found a tree was broken. That tree fell onto the roadway for Karen Crowe High School. It sat there for close to 2 weeks before it was even removed, and I think the city police removed it off of the roadway. It is still sitting on the side of the road. I have pictures. Now it's in the way of a drainage ditch, so now we're going to have trouble with drainage. Most of these owners, a lot of them have been out there in excess of 20 years. The school has not come out to maintain this property line. It's in horrible condition. Something needs to be done ASAP. I have statements from numerous people that the last time I called, there was an animal buried a hole in 2004. Y'all came and immediately cut the tree. 2007, I heard a bunch of chainsaws back there, and they came and they cleaned just up to my lot. Past my lot hasn't been touched. So 13 years, nothing's been done back there. And we want the property line maintained. There's trees that are in horrible condition. There's dead trees. We fear for our life. One of the owners doesn't have homeowner's insurance. And I had an occurrence a few years ago with a homeowner's claim. Homeowner's insurance does not pay for everything. Then you have to go live somewhere else. You have to take money out of your pocket. And I hate to say it, but if I have to pull money out of my pocket, I'm looking for the rest of my money from someone, somewhere. It's not a good situation. We just want, and for instance, like my son bought this house for a lot of money. He's paying a mortgage. He's paying property taxes, and he can't use his yard right now. He has 3 dogs. They can't even use the yard. So that has become a huge issue. We have another lady that she has roots, and here's the pictures of the roots in her backyard. They're almost at her house. She fears that her plumbing of her house will be destroyed. Part of the tree is dead. The roots go way far. I have pictures of all the roots. So these trees need to be tended to. If anyone wants to see any of these pictures and the statements I have from each property owner, and these are not all the property owners. I didn't have enough time. I was hoping to be put on the next meeting, but it is what it is. So, but I do have a significant amount of statements here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else want to speak on the issue? 3 minutes, please.
So I'd just like to say, I've been calling for the past year and a half, the school board, to get this stuff handled. And then we had this hurricane come through. We had to move our bed into the living room because we're worried about those trees. If something happens, I feel like at this point, we've done as much as we possibly can. And now we're here. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, the phone call started in 2008 and promised that it would be taken care of in 2009. I have a list of phone calls. I even emailed Mr. Several emails, and then he didn't email me back. Let's see. Where's that? Gosh. Got copies of the emails here. I would have to say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 by my son and his girlfriend, and probably about 6 phone calls of myself and emails, and we're still, nothing's done.
Okay, thank you. This is just an information item this evening being presented to the board. We thank you for your information, and
Okay, thanks.
thank you. Next on the agenda is 3.3, list of bids approved to be advertised by the interim superintendent. Ms. Trosclair?
Just a listing of the advertisements that have been approved over the past month of January and part of February. Information item.
Any board member or public comment on these items? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next informational item. 2020-2021 budget recap and timeline. Mr. Guidry?
Yes, the calendar has been revised to reflect the last change that was requested, which basically rescheduled meetings that were scheduled on April 7th and 14th and moved them to April 8th and 16th. So the calendar reflects those revisions.
Thank you. Any board member questions on this information item? Any public comment? Thank you. 3.5 is Human Resources, Personnel Changes for February 12th, 2020. Ms. Thibodeau? No introductions tonight. Thank you. That concludes our information items. Next, we'll move to our consent agenda. I'll read the items. If anyone would like one pulled, please say so. 4.1, discussion and or action concerning the elementary grade level realignment of 5th grade students at Acadian Middle School. 4.2, discussion and or action concerning the elementary grade level realignment of 5th grade students at Scott Middle School. 4.3, discussion and or action concerning the proposed district and administrative calendars for the 2020 and 2021 and 2021 and 2022 school years. 4.4, discussion and or action concerning resolution 0220-1973, National School Counselors Week.
I'll pull 4.4.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Morrison. 4.5, discussion and or action concerning resolution 02-020-1972, National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week.
I'll pull 4.5, please.
Thank you. 4.6, discussion and or action concerning the approval of quotes for Austin Elementary kitchen air conditioning. 4.7, discussion and or action concerning approval of quotes for Northside High baseball, softball restrooms. 4.8, discussion and or action concerning budget revisions to David Thibodeau STEM Academy soccer fields, lighting, baseball, softball fields, and parent drop-off driveway project, and Acadiana High press box replacement project. 4.9, discussion and or action concerning approval of bids for Acadiana High press box. 4.10, discussion and or action concerning approval of quotes for Woodville Elementary matching funds project digital sign. 4.11, discussion and or action concerning assignment of small projects to architects and engineers. 4.12, discussion and or action concerning approval of facility and mechanical services, system services contract. 4.13, discussion and or action concerning budget revisions to Drexel Elementary Wing Addition and Boucher Elementary renovations projects. 4.14, discussion and or action concerning approval of quotes for Ernest Gallette Elementary matching funds project digital sign. 4.15, discussion and or action concerning recessions of 12/11/2019 board action regarding the purchase of 2 portable classroom buildings for Southside High School.
Pull that, please.
4.16, discussion and or action concerning the grant fund summary for January 2020. 4.17, discussion and or action concerning the sales tax collection report for December 2019. 4.18, discussion and or action concerning budget to actual reports for January 2020. 4.19, discussion and or action concerning the extension of fiscal agent contract.
Pull that, please.
4.20, discussion and or action concerning the utility servitude for Ridge Elementary. 4.21, discussion and or action concerning a utility servitude, Judy's Middle School. 4.22, discussion and or action concerning bid award for printing and binding of Eureka Math, Science, and Printing K-12 instructional materials, bid 53-20. 4.23, discussion and or action concerning Resolution 02-20-1971, employment of special counsel for LPSS Sales Tax Office. 4.24, discussion and or action concerning bid award for risograph machine bid 54-20. 4.25, discussion and or action concerning proposals for internet services. 4.26, discussion and or action concerning wide area network proposals. 4.27, discussion and or action concerning the 2020-2021 staff allocation formulas and guideline booklet. 4.28, discussion and or action concerning the addition of 2 school social worker positions. And then 4.29 is discussion and or action concerning the minutes of January 8, 2020. Items pulled are 4.4, 4.5, 4.11, 4.12, 4.13, 4.15, 4.19, 4.23, 4.25, and 4.26. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve all items not pulled.
I'll second.
We have a motion that we approve all items on the agenda that were not pulled. If anyone would like to speak on an item that was not pulled, please do so now. Any board member comment on any items not pulled? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
8 for, and none against.
All right, motion passes. First item pulled was 4.4, discussion and or action concerning Resolution 02-20-1973, National School Counselors Week. Ms. Morrison?
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to approve that the board approve Resolution 02-20-1973, National School Counselors Week.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Morrison, seconded by Dr. Aguilar, that the board approve Resolution 02-20-1973, National School Counselors Week. Ms. Morrison, would you like to read the resolution?
National School Counseling Week. Whereas the American School Counselor Association sponsors the National School Counseling Week to focus public attention on the unique contribution of professional school counselors within all school systems and how students are different as a result of what school counselors do. Whereas National School Counseling Week highlights the tremendous impact school counselors can have in helping students achieve school success and plan for a career. Whereas school counselors are recognized for implementing the comprehensive school counseling program, which is such a vital part of educational process for all students as they meet the challenges of the 21st century. Therefore, be it duly resolved that the Lafayette Parish School Board does hereby designate the week of February 3rd through the 7th, 2020 as National School Counseling Week.
Any board member comment? Any public comment? Madam Secretary, I call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
The motion passes. Next item pulled was 4.5, discussion and or action concerning Resolution 02-20-1972, National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week. Ms. Mason?
I'd like to make a motion that the board approves Resolution 2-2019-72 in recognition of March 2020 as National Nutrition Month and March 2nd through 6th, 2020 as National School Breakfast Week.
We have a motion from Ms. Mason,
Second.
and a second from Ms. Morrison. Ms. Mason, would you like to read the resolution, please?
Yes, I would. Okay. National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week. Whereas National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week combined has admirably served our nation for more than 40 years. And whereas all the programs are dedicated to the health and well-being of our nation's children. And whereas food is the substance by which life is sustained and learning abilities in and out of the classroom increase substantially. And whereas the type, quality, and amount of food that individuals consume each day plays a vital role in their overall health and physical fitness. And whereas there is a need for continuing nutrition education and a wide-scale effort to enhance good eating practices. And whereas there is evidence of continued need for nutrition programs and awareness of the value of school nutrition programs now. Therefore, be it resolved that the Lafayette Parish School Board does hereby support the month of March as National Nutrition Month and National School Breakfast Week, March 6th through March 2nd through 6th, 2020, and encourage our administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, students, and all other community members to join the campaign and become aware and concerned about their children's and their own nutritional habits in hope of achieving a more healthful citizenry for today and the future.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. Is there any public comment on this? Any board member comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is 4.11, discussion and our action concerning assignments of small projects to architects and engineers. Dr. Chasson,
I'd like to make a motion to defer this item.
we have a motion by Dr. Chasson to defer this item,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Santani. Is there any public comment on this item? Any board member comment? Dr. Chasson?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Actually have a million questions, but I would like to ask one or two of them before this gets to it. It states that it was a lottery process used for the selections, and once an individual is chosen for a certain project, I was curious to know if that same name goes back into the lottery, or if that name stays out while the other projects are being given out.
Mr. Bordelon?
Good afternoon, Board. Kyle Bordelon, Director of Planning and Facilities. The lottery process that we use is pretty simple, pretty basic. Got some committee members that the superintendent picks. We put the projects in one bowl, we put the architect's name in another, and we start drawing them out one by one and matching them up accordingly. As you can see, in most cases, well, in some cases on the architectural projects, there are fewer projects than there are architects who applied.
Right.
So not everyone gets a project. As you can see on some of the mechanical engineering and electrical projects, there were more projects than there were persons who applied. So whatever the order of the engineers, whatever their order is, we just start repeating the same order as we pick additional projects. Does that make sense?
Okay. So for our fiscal year 1920, LJ Alamon's middle school roofing replacement goes to someone. Northside High replacement goes to someone. The fact that there's less names than the number of projects, so we just start over, repeat. I'm trying to paraphrase what you said, but
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
If
basically.
I'm understanding you
okay,
correctly.
all the names go back in the bowl for every project, or so for instance, if you've got a project and I win, my name goes out the bowl, but for the next project, does my name go back in the bowl, or you just continue to pick till there's no more names in the bowl, then we start back over?
Let me get you to back up to the fiscal year 18-19
Okay.
page. And if you drop down to the heading that says mechanical engineering projects,
Yes, sir.
okay. There were
One,
there
two,
were
three,
four
four.
mechanical engineers
Gotcha.
who applied.
Okay.
And you'll see M&E, Ritter, ADG, CD Morgan. Then it repeats, M&E, Ritter, ADG, CD Morgan. Then it repeats, M&E, Ritter, ADG, CD Morgan. So there were more projects than there were folks who applied. So we just, as we picked the order the first time, we just repeated it.
Repeat it.
We
Okay.
just allowed it to repeat. We didn't put their names back in, because that way, we just felt it's more fair just to let that order repeat of the engineers, and then we picked the projects and however the projects fell, then that's who was assigned.
Okay, so for architectural projects, 4 projects, the remaining people obviously don't get any work for that.
Correct.
Is it a tendency for some of the same architects, I guess the ones that didn't get work, do they just not apply the next year? Do we just continue to have those same names, or you have to apply every year
We'd
to
run
be up for
Yeah.
projects?
We run an advertisement every year,
Okay,
and there is a tendency for most folks to reapply. Some do, some don't,
Right.
but
yeah, I see a lot of names that were there for 18-19 that aren't there for 19-20, so I was just curious, they just didn't apply for?
right, they didn't apply, they didn't see the advertisement in the newspaper, whatever the reason.
Okay. We advertise for how long?
28, I believe it's 28 days.
28 days, and it's in the Daily Advertiser?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And based on the applications, they're all comparable? Meaning we have confidence that the people we're picking are just as good as the other individuals who apply?
Well, it's hard to answer that question. Some of the architects and engineers we are familiar with because they've done work for us in the past. Some we have never worked with in the past. But this is a good way for them to get their foot in the door and work with us on a project. And if it's a good relationship and we get along really well, they will reapply again. If they don't like the way we operate, then they just won't apply for any additional work on the next time around.
So-
It's their choice.
Is there some kind of closeout procedure to show that we're, satisfied with the work that they've accomplished, or that they've substantially completed the work in a way that we feel is the standard?
No, we have no closeout procedure. No, ma'am.
So they can reapply even though we're not?
Correct.
Let me piggyback off of her
Yeah.
question. So how do we determine if we worked well with them? Like that, if I quoted that term, worked well with them, how would we determine that then? That's tough to put you on the spot.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
But how do we determine if we worked well with them to know if we even allow them to be in the pool next time?
Well, we will not prevent anyone from reapplying, and we will not prevent them. There is no way, no mechanism for us to prevent someone from applying or for us to keep them off of the list.
Okay. So anyone can apply,
Yes.
and if you apply, you're accepted, you're put in the lottery.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I have a lot more questions, but I'm gonna take up way too much time, because I'd like to dig deeper into this. Hence the motion to defer. I'll stop.
Mrs. Santani?
Do we have, how many architects did we have apply that were not qualified for this work right here? So everyone who submitted a response to the RFQ,
Correct.
and when was the RFQ issued?
I don't have those dates with me, sir.
But it's within the last 5 months, 6 months, something like that?
Well, these were from some previous fiscal years, so I don't have
No, I'm
those
talking
dates
about the
with me.
1920.
The 1920.
I guess it was probably an issue last January or something like that.
Roughly, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bordelon, how many years have you used this very technique to assign architects and contractors and whatnot?
At least 10, probably 15.
So we've been using the same mechanism, and the idea about spreading the work out makes sense, that there might be a company out there that we know very little about, and I can name several that we've worked with over the past 2 years that turn out to be excellent architects and or contractors or mechanical engineers. It's a way for us to try to spread the business. Otherwise, we would likely tend to continue using people repeatedly to the point where it's excessive. This way, we spread the work as evenly as we can throughout Lafayette Parish to try to benefit the school system.
That's correct.
One more question, follow-up. Small project, how is that defined?
Generally, it's projects that will only take one discipline to accomplish the work. For example, a roofing project can be handled by an architect. An air conditioner or chiller changeout can be handled by a mechanical engineer, and that's about it. As opposed to a wing addition project where there's an architect who has mechanical and electrical engineers, civil engineers, structural engineers. There's a whole lot of disciplines involved in a large project, like we call it a project of major complexity.
So we're calling it small, but it's not a dollar figure, it's a one discipline
Correct.
figure, okay, or definition.
Is there a, I'm sorry, sir, wasn't.
Go ahead.
But is there a dollar figure that that it can't exceed based upon calling a small project? Or it can range up into the hundreds of thousands for?
I don't know that we have a specific dollar figure. I mean, I can tell you, for example, one of the projects that recently completed, or a couple of projects recently completed, Lafayette High roofing was a little over $1 million. Como High roofing was a little over $1 million. You know, some of those projects, just because of the nature of the work, the dollar figure goes up pretty high.
Right.
But it was just one architectural firm that handled, two different firms handled both of those two different projects.
Okay. So that's my final question. Just a last statement. I understand spreading it out and giving everyone a chance, but the notion of if you apply, you're accepted and you're guaranteed work. I mean, if I was an architect, I'd be crazy not to jump on that, whether I was rich or a struggling architect. If I know there's 10 projects and only 6 people are applying, then I'm going to get work. But if there's no vetting or closing out process to know what we deem good work or great work or average work, I think I would at least hope we would try and figure something like that out. And I'll stop with that.
I have one more follow-up. Why are we separately deciding or voting on HVAC programs then, or HVAC projects? That's one discipline.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I think we had a separate vote or a separate item, which is an HVAC project. Why
No,
is that not included in a small project
That's the
selection?
maintenance contract.
So that's
HVAC
different.
maintenance contract.
Okay, so these are just construction type.
These are, yes, ma'am, these are equipment replacement projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to remind my fellow board members, please don't ask questions until I call on you. One at a time, please. Thank you. Mr. Broussard.
Mr. Bordelon, and I understand we've got more works than people that apply, but is it illegal or is it possible for us to judge the work that has been done? Because the way I'm understanding it, they get the job and we're limited as far as the contractors, so they get to repeat the job and we are not satisfied. I don't know if we are not. We may not be satisfied with the work that they have done, but can we come up with something that says that it won't be illegal if we do not offer you the contract or something to say that we are satisfied with the work that you have done? Would it be illegal to do so?
Mr. Broussard, I don't know the answer to your question, but I feel personally that if we do work with a design professional and we don't feel that they serve us in the best capacity, they don't serve the school system in the best capacity, and if we do have some type of, I'm going to call it an exit interview, and we give them bad ratings on the way out, then you guys are going to be the first ones that are going to get a phone call when they're pulling out the parking lot to say that this guy is not giving them a fair shake. So we we do projects, we work with the designers as best we can, and we leave it up to them if they want to reapply for work with us.
I understand, but just in case somebody just totally messed up the project, they've got the opportunity to come back and do some more work with us or for us. That's the only question I'm asking. Is there or can there be something that a grading system that say you have completed A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, whatever the case may be, your quality of work is accepted by, not by us, by you or somebody else? Not put you on this, but just if you are satisfied with their work, to retain the contract again for some other project. Because everybody doesn't do good work. We know that to be a fact. We don't know who, maybe not, everybody does not do. I'm just asking a question. Is there or can there be something that...
Well,
that
I have looked and asked questions about how the state of Louisiana handles their architects and engineers for their projects, and no one can point to me anything specifically in relation to what you're asking about of how to grade a designer's work or performance. I truly believe that by the end of a project, they understand if they've done a good job, or we understand if they've done a good job or a bad job or whatever. And so by the end of the project, I think there's probably just some kind of unsaid, something that's unsaid, that they decide whether they're going to reapply for work with the school system or not.
Mr. Guidry, you had something you want to add?
Yes, I just wanted to mention, of course, in any new architectural firm, we wouldn't have that historical perspective. But if, in the event, we were to have an architectural firm that we had prior work experience with and felt uncomfortable with them performing additional services for us, the way I would see that working in this process would be that the committee would basically make a recommendation that that firm not be considered and provide the justification for that recommendation. From a professional services standpoint, our requirements are set by the board, as opposed to, we're not, it's a good business practice, but it's not statutorily required. So I would see us having that flexibility, and I would recommend that be our practice if and when we were to run across a firm that we did not feel comfortable. Justification might be timeliness of completion, effectiveness of design, if there were issues experienced after the work was done, any issues with cost estimates being significantly off, just a number of things. Again, if we were to make that recommendation, we'd have to present it to the board, and then the board would make a decision accordingly.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Broussard? You good? Any more board member comment? Dr. Chasson, one more time. I know.
I want to be sure that the two people that just spoke hear exactly what you're saying, both of you. So there's no way to tell, but we've called the state and we've reached out to the state, but no one can tell us how do we judge if it's good or bad. But we can tell if it's good or bad work. But it's unsaid, it's unspoken that if they do good work or not, it's not for us to determine. It's if they apply again. And then if it's bad work, the committee can make a recommendation. What committee? What's the committee? Who's on the committee? And recommendation none. I'm hearing that everybody that applies is accepted and everybody's put into the lottery. So what recommendation are they going off of if we have no way to judge if they've done good work or not? Like if I have nothing to grade you on, I have some stuff to grade you on, your work, but if we've got no rubric to grade or evaluate whether we deem it good or bad, then what is the committee making a recommendation on? It's what? Somebody help me out here.
So, Dr. Chasson, I do agree that there should be some type of closeout process for an expectation of quality work. What that looks like, I'm not sure, but we will meet with staff and determine what that could look like and bring that back. I do think that needs to be part of the process.
One more time, Ms. LeBeau. And the motion
you.
is to defer, so just so
Okay.
everybody know, it is to defer, so. Go ahead.
It's true. Do we have control over any subcontractors or subcontractors that these people are putting in place? Do we have any written contractual, restrictions on who they can hire and who they can bring in to do the work for them?
Are you speaking about the construction contractors or the designers?
I mean, any of them. Just didn't know if they are allowed to subcontract any of that work out. So that we're in fact hiring this company, but we're getting somebody that's not even.
Well, when we sign a contract with any of these designers, we sign it with that company. In my experience, they generally don't subcontract out
A lot of that work. Okay.
much of the work.
Okay.
And usually, because it's a single discipline project, they're doing the work themselves.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what you're asking, Ms. LeBeau, that's on the construction side. This is on the architectural engineering side. On the construction side, right, okay. Ms. Mason?
So I'm just trying to clarify everything that's been said. We do not have a vetting process for these people to be able to apply to be in the pool, correct?
Correct.
And therefore, we don't have any sort of master service agreements with contractors, like things that they have to, if I say I'm an architect, like, do I have to say that I have this degree and have this much experience? Like, we don't require a certain amount of time or no regulation?
No, ma'am. When we advertise for the small projects, we ask them to send in their qualifications. And so it's up to them to send us basically their resume, their past projects, who they've worked for, whatever they want to send in to show us, give us some confidence that they've got some experience in building projects and things like that.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. But currently, you don't have anything formally that says, okay, well, they checked these 3 boxes and we can use them.
No, not for the small projects.
Okay.
Now, for when it's a project of major complexity, like a brand-new school or a new wing addition, we may require that they have so many years of experience with school projects, or we may require some of those things for the larger projects. But for the small projects, we think it's the most fair way to try to encourage existing firms, new firms, to come in and try to work with us and see if they like our system and our rules and our regulations. I've come across some firms that have hardly ever worked for any government entities, and when we have to tell them what our rules are and how we have to do business, they don't particularly like that, because it's not like in the private world where you don't have to bid things out and do things a certain way, and the structure that we have to follow. Some folks don't really care for that. Some don't mind. Some work for a lot of government entities and it's no big deal. They're accustomed to the process. So it's a way for us to try them out, for them to try us out, and to figure out if they want to do some more work with us in the future.
Right. No, I understand that. I was just, to Kate's point about there is no cap on the amount of money. So for them to just try $1 million roof project seems like a big risk. So that's my comment.
Any more board member comment before we go to the vote? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I call for the vote. The motion is to defer this item.
Seven for, one against.
You can announce it, Ms. Dorothy. It's up.
7 for, one against.
The item is deferred. Next on the agenda is 4.12, discussion and or action concerning approval of facility and mechanical system services contract. Dr. Chasson?
I'd like to make a motion to rebid this contract out.
We have a motion on the floor by Dr. Chasson to rebid item 4.12, discussion and our action concerning approval of facility and mechanical system services contract. It has been seconded by Mr. Angel. Is there any public comment on this item? Any board member comment on this item? Dr. Chasson?
I'd like to make a request of Mr. Bordelon, if he could reach out to other HVAC companies in the area to see if we could possibly get other bids to come in so we can see if we are indeed getting a fair price for our HVAC services.
Any more board member comment? Dr. Aguilar?
Mr. Bordelon, do you know how many companies picked up packets or received packets?
I know of 2 companies that picked up, but one turned in a proposal.
Any more board member comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
The motion carries.
One
Next on
against.
the agenda is 4.13, discussion and or action concerning budget revisions to Drexel Elementary Wing Addition and Boucher Elementary renovation projects. Dr. Chasson?
Really quickly, why in a, I don't want to say it wrong, let me see.
We need a motion
The
first, Dr.
excuse me,
Chasson. Need a motion first.
Yeah, right, you're killing me. Motion to approve.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask a question now?
The motion on the floor is that the board approve a budget revision to the Fund 45 self-funded construction fund to reduce the Drexel Elementary Wing Addition budget to $705,000, and a budget revision to the Fund 58 2016 construction fund to increase the Boucher Elementary renovations budget by $705,000 to be funded with a transfer from the contingency budget line item in Fund 58. The motion was made by Dr. Chasson.
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly, and seconded by Mr. Broussard. Any public comment? Hearing none. Board member comment, Dr. Chasson?
Why an additional $705,000? Who can answer that question for me? Like, what occurred that, or am I just reading it wrong?
To try to answer that question, I'll have to take you back a little bit in history. When some of these projects were first budgeted by the board, Boucher was scheduled to get a wing addition. Somewhere along the way, it was changed to Drexel would get a wing addition,
Right.
and Boucher would get some renovations. So most of the money that was allocated to Boucher was put in the Drexel wing addition, with the
Correct.
understanding that when we got to a certain point in construction on Drexel, when we saw what was left, we would try to move that back to the Boucher renovations.
Okay.
In the meantime, we've had an architect looking at and working on plans for the Boucher renovations, and it started out as $1 million, then it was bumped up to $1.2 million for the renovations at Boucher, but for the work that is being requested to be done, the architect is telling us now that the budget needs to be closer to 1.9, possibly $2 million. So by moving this $705,000, we're going to get extremely close to the estimated cost that the architect is coming up with for the Boucher renovations. So that's why we're trying to make this move at this time, to properly fund the Boucher renovations project so we can move forward and finish plans and get bids.
Okay, so not additional funds for the same work, additional funds for additional work.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
Dr. Aguilar?
So I'd just like to know, what additional work is Boucher getting for the $700,000?
Library expansion, door hardware replacement, and
Restrooms.
that was already,
That was already in
the
there.
cafeteria expansion and the restrooms was already in the work, but along the way, the office renovation
Security.
was in there also. There's one other piece that I'm forgetting, but the bigger part of that is the library expansion was about a close to $400,000 add, if you want to call it, to the project that was not really anticipated until we started getting into the plans and the schematics of it all.
So didn't we have a fairly significant drop in enrollment at Boucher?
We had a drop, not significant, but enough that we didn't need that wing, which is
Yeah.
why we moved that money to Drexel. But Boucher has long outgrown the core areas. Cafeteria is much smaller. We can't even, folks can't even gather students in there. Eating has to take extremely long time because of the size. So the core area we've outgrown. The restrooms have been a problem there for a long time.
Any more board member comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
8 for, 1 against.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, 4.15, discussion and or action concerning recession of 12/11/2019 board action regarding the purchase of 2 portable classroom buildings for Southside High School. Mrs. Santani. I mean, anyone have a motion on this?
Motion, Mr. President.
Word docs.
I motion to approve the resending of the 415 discussion and or concerning the resending the agenda item.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Broussard that the board rescinds the board action taken at the December 11, 2019 meeting to approve the purchase and set up using USDA funding of 2 new portable double classroom buildings for Southside High School, seconded by Dr. Aguilar. Any public comment on this item? Come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Erica Dick. I will have a question about that because I was under the impression that y'all built Southside High to accommodate and not bring Butler buildings back to these schools. So why are y'all bringing the Butler building back?
The motion is to not put.
Oh, to
portable
not
buildings.
put it? Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
To take, okay, I'm sorry. Then y'all
That's
good.
okay. That's okay. That's all right. Do we have any other public comment on the matter? Hearing none, any board member comment on this item? Mr. Santani.
I have a question for whomever, Dr. Aguilar or whomever can answer this. So we talked about this quite a bit in December. I voted against putting the portable buildings there, but we are where we are now. What is, since this answer tends to change every time I ask it, how many students can Southside hold?
Okay, so the core facility areas were designed for 2,000 students. The phase 1 of the building was about 1,500 students. Catherine Cassidy, she's in the audience tonight, she and I have visited recently, and looking at their master schedule, it's been determined that they have the capacity to rove as many as 7 teachers.
Okay.
In the existing main phase 1 of the building, using some very, very reasonable enrollment projections, we believe that the capacity of phase 1 with as many as 7 teachers roving would be about 1,973 students. So let's call it 2,000 students. Looking at the enrollment numbers for the next couple of years, there are a couple of moving parts to this, but we don't see the enrollment of Southside High reaching 1,973 students until the 21-22 school year. And so the recommendation from Catherine and I would be that we defer moving those buildings.
Okay. So what, I'm sorry, Mr. President, may I continue? All right, I know. What would the plan be if we exceed 1973? Not even before then, but let's just say in 2023, what would the plan be?
I think the plan would continue to look at roving additional teachers. There is even additional capacity to rove teachers. Remember, the main core areas, the hallways, the bathrooms, the gymnasiums, the library, have all been designed for 2,000 students. That we look at the enrollment numbers over the next 2 or 3 years, and we should be fine.
May I ask Ms. Cassidy a question? Come
Come on up, Ms. Cassidy.
It didn't work for me sitting in the back and raising my hand when I was in 5th grade. It's not going to work tonight. What is the total number of teachers that you can rove? So I'm really trying to drive at is the answer, how many students can you have at Southside High School?
With the accelerated cushion numbers that I, kind of estimated that I shared with you.
No, that's not what I'm asking.
1973, we could go up to 2,000.
No, let's start with the first question. How many teachers, because he just said
7.
that you cannot rove more than 7?
I can rove more than 7, yes.
That's my question.
I don't know. I worked in up to 1973.
Okay. You have a ballpark, like a guess? Is it 10? Is it 20?
I would say probably 2 more.
2 more. Okay. And do you have a rule of thumb or other kind of ballpark on how many additional classroom seats a roving teacher introduces? So obviously, a roving teacher means that's one period where a classroom is not being used by a teacher planning, right?
That's correct.
It's being used by students in the classroom. So if we rove one more teacher, that means we get an extra 30, or no? That's certainly not the right math, but
You're talking about how many more students would accommodate for
that's exactly right.
Caleb? It's whatever it is divided by 29 times 1.14. I don't know how many it is per teacher. I mean, about 30. $174 for a teacher.
Roving one teacher opens up a classroom for 7 periods? Is that what y'all were saying?
Were you asking how many students would we allow to come in to get to 9?
Yes.
I think he's saying 174 students gets you one more teacher.
Okay, so
29 gets you the one teacher, which is
Okay.
really 33, but, right.
Okay, so we're talking about exactly, so we're talking about 2,050 students is the capacity at 9 roving teachers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
That sounds like a great number.
Well, I mean, look,
Yes, yes.
Every time I ask the question, how many students can Southside hold, the number increases. And it's almost like a calculus problem as the limit approaches. I just want to know what the answer is. The limit does not exist. So far.
So let me just clarify something. So when the school was built and we first opened, we didn't have access to all of the building. So that was a wash year as far as trying to determine how many spaces we had and how we were going to utilize the spaces. Last year was year 2. Then we were able to see how we could maximize space, what spaces were utilized in which scenarios. Then this year, the school was built for 1450. But we had spaces on campus. I mean, obviously, we started the year at 1683. So we put 1683, and we didn't have a problem. So there were spaces on campus that were designed for, they might have a title or a nameplate by it, but in reality, it needed to be a classroom, and it's worked fine being a classroom. So that's why the more you work, and administrators, we get real clever in how we utilize spaces. There were spaces that were maybe not being used like the architects intended them to be used because we were using them just differently. And so now they've become classroom spaces, and so we've maximized instructional space. It's not like if you said, would you want that space back for its original use? No, it's great as an instructional space. We just have to live in the building for a while to determine how the spaces need to be used. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'd really like to commend you and your staff for what you've done this year in being creative with your scheduling and roving teachers and all of that. That has really given some relief, I know.
Thinking we don't rove any teachers this year.
Oh, you don't rove any this year?
No.
Oh, no, it's saying 0-2 next year, right? That's what it's saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so like an increase of 6, and we got up to 1853 next year. That would, as per the allocation, we would get 6 additional teachers. We have 4 additional spaces that I can repurpose into instructional spaces, which would put us 2 over, so 2 roving next year at a total of 1853 students.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have one other question. Have we ever, you may know the answer, but if you don't, that's okay. Have we ever opened a year at Southside where the enrollment was less than we anticipated going in?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
No,
Like every year, you've had to come back to the superintendent and say, I need more teachers, because I got more students than I thought we were going to have.
Last year, we were staffed great. I don't think we asked for any additional teachers when we started, because we saw what happened after year one. So just to kind of give you a little bit of, information, our senior class and our junior class are our two small classes. That's when we first opened. People didn't have faith in what we were doing there. Then after year one, I commend my staff for doing such a great job, then people started drinking the Southside Kool-Aid. And so then they moved up to sophomores and juniors, the two small classes. Our freshman class came in at 505. And then this next class, which is now the senior class, is smaller. Sophomore class is bigger. Again, we're starting to see some stabilization. We started back at 510. So now we're starting to see some stabilization of what our true numbers are going to look like coming in as freshmen. That's why I overestimated the numbers at like 510 coming in as freshman classes.
Okay.
And you can see that we would really be phenomenal if we only lost 30 kids a year through attrition. I hope that's the case, but.
Oh, me too. Thank you. Thank you for those answers.
Sure.
Any other board member comment? Mr. Angel.
Yes, ma'am. This discussion brings up a question that I have, Mrs. Troxclair. Do we have a student count by school, by teacher, as to how many students we have, which teachers are teaching how many students?
Yes, sir.
System-wide?
We do.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Chasson?
My question is, I understand what roving is, but for the general public, I'm lying, I don't understand what roving is. Explain to me. I've heard that term so many times, and in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, okay, we're roving a teacher. Yeah, we're just roving that teacher. Explain to me what roving is.
Okay, so I want to give you a little bit of information on what old school roving meant and what new generation roving means.
Okay.
So old school roving meant you had to carry your book cart down the hallway. You had to bring it from class to class. So that was a pain in the rear end to do that. Teacher, it was a pain in the rear end. Myself, I had to do that as a teacher when I first got to Acadiana High School. But the new generation of roving is not nearly the same. They're even building schools right now where I think if you were involved in the charrette, which I was not, they even proposed maybe doing teacher pods and all the teachers to maximize classroom space so no one ever had an off period. I don't know who was on the charrette in here, but so that we maximize a school at Southside where no class was ever left vacant. So the reason for me telling you that is because if teachers rove now in Southside with a one-to-one environment, which is very mobile, then the teacher pretty much walks in and can instruct with a computer, a board, and the student's laptop. So roving means, to get back to your original question, is they move from classroom to classroom as they teach that group of students. So wherever your off period is, if I have off fifth hour, then I have a teacher that comes in and uses my classroom space. And then we already have in our building, we already have areas where I would outfit as teacher pods. And what I mean by teacher pods is for those that were roving, they would still have an office space. So I can even go as far as accommodating teachers where they still have their dedicated office space. So they're not in the library or in the lounge, because we have some spaces on our campus that probably aren't being utilized as maybe the architects thought that they would be utilized. And for us, we would use them as teacher pods.
So one classroom that the teacher has third hour off, someone comes in and teaches in that classroom, so that's their class. So technically speaking, one classroom will host two teachers, one that rode for one period, and the other teacher that's their classroom for the entire day? Is that how that works? Or do you have other situations where that same classroom is being used by 3, 4, 5?
It could be used by two, such as, for example, like health teachers who, they might teach PE the last 3 hours of the day, they teach health the first 3 hours, might teach Quest for Success or Journey for Careers. So sometimes a classroom can be utilized by two different teachers, pending their schedule and how it works out.
Okay, I got you. And you said we have 1683 now at Southside? Is
We
that the number?
we started the year at 1683. So right now on February 6th, we were at 1660.
1660, okay.
But I used the highest number just to make sure that I was being generous in my expectations.
Okay, I got you.
So we've already decreased our population by about 20, which I think is probably normal. Now we're getting no more coming. Like we registered, I think 5 today, and then we'll lose maybe 5 in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Mr. Angel?
Thank you. I just want to make a comment, Mr. President. As a former teacher, and I know there are some in here, I think there's a better term to use than a teacher being off. Teachers aren't off during the day. It's a planning period that teachers use either to grade papers or to call parents when they need to call their parents or to prepare further for classroom presentations and that kind of thing. So maybe my comment is let's try to change that somewhat from being off to a planning period or something else, some other term if you wish. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Angel. Any more public comment? Ms. LeBeau?
I have a question. So if we rescind, the money is then put back, or I guess it's a reimbursement, so the money hasn't been allocated per se, but another proposal has to be put forward for the money to be allocated to a specific purpose, or is it just released to the school?
No,
and is reimbursed as
it has to be,
projects are
it has
done?
to be reallocated. Correct,
Okay.
Mr. Guidry? It'll have to be reallocated. It'll be
Okay.
removed from this project and on hold. And then if Southside has any other needs, it'll be allocated to that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Santani?
Mr. President, I have a substitute motion. I'd like to move that the board direct the superintendent to indefinitely postpone the implementation of portable buildings at Southside High School.
We have a motion. We have a second from Mr. Broussard. Any public comment on our substitute motion? Any board member comment on our?
I'll give a quick explanation if you don't mind. From the discussion, it certainly convinced me that you don't need the portable buildings now. I do have some concern that you may need them 2 years from now, and I'd certainly like to have the plan in place so that you guys can pull the trigger in the eventuality that you need to. And if you don't, then that's great.
I think
So,
the money has an expiration date.
yeah, it's like 40 years from now.
No, we have to be spent,
We
I think,
have to
within
have
a
the
year.
money spent, the project completed by August 2021, Billy, is that correct?
Mhm.
Oh, so we'll know. So that's the start of school in 2021, right?
Well, the USDA process would have to, I mean, I'm not sure how familiar you are with that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, it's not bond money sitting in an account. Okay.
And I
Well-
don't think I mean, Mr. Guidry, you couldn't wait until August 2021 to spend the money because the process just lasts so long.
It would-
Okay.
The
So then we
process
end
would
up in
have to
this-
be completed by that time.
So if it expires, then we end up in the same place as rescinding the previous action, right? Okay. I just, instead of rescinding it and then having to come back and re-implement it, the money's allocated, I'm sure we own buildings somewhere, but, it's, everything's in place, right? And that's what I think, wait and see how the enrollment shakes out and make a more informed decision down the road than trying to project what's going to happen a year and a half from now or 2 years from now. Just my opinion.
Any public comment on the motion? I asked that already, I'm sorry. Any more board member comment on the
I
motion?
just want to reassure Mr. Centeni that, yes, we own a lot of portable buildings. I'm not sure anybody's going to let us put them on the property, but we do have those buildings.
All right. Mr. Angel?
You can't put them at Cameron Grove Heights because it's full.
All right.
I'd like to make a new motion. I'm just joking.
Ms. Dorothy, could you put up the motion so I can read it before the vote? Or Mrs. Santani, if you remember your motion, if you could say it again, please.
The motion was that the board direct the superintendent to indefinitely postpone the implementation of portable buildings at Southside High School.
There's your motion, ladies and gentlemen. I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Good? Thank you, Ms. Cassidy.
9 for, none against.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 4.19, discussion and or action concerning the extension of the fiscal agent contract. Mrs. Centani?
I'll just point out real quick before Ms. Mason makes this motion is that I will be having to recuse myself since I am an employee of our fiscal agent.
Thank you, sir. Ms.
I'll
Mason?
make the motion that the Lafayette Parish School Board approve the extension of the fiscal agent contract with Iberia Bank as attached in the public content section of this agenda item.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Mason, seconded by Ms. Morrison, that the Lafayette Parish School Board approve the extension of the fiscal agent contract with Iberia Bank as attached in the public content section of this agenda item. Any public comment on this item, this motion? Any board member comment on this motion?
I would just like to say, I'm sorry,
Let's go ahead.
Mr. President, that I'll be abstaining as well, as my husband is a employee of Iberia Bank.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 abstaining. Any board member comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Babies cry because they're not in my house.
7 for, 2 abstain.
Motion carries. Next item, 4.23, discussion and our action concerning Resolution 02-20-1971, employment of special counsel for LPSS Sales Tax Office. Dr. Chasson?
My question was,
Motion.
I'm not going to make a motion.
We need a motion before we can open up discussion.
Actually, I will make a motion.
You make a motion?
The board have resolution. I'd like to make a motion that the board does not accept the recommendation. Still needed to pull it, otherwise it would have passed. I know. Otherwise, I'd have to wait, but somebody else is going to make the motion for it to pass.
Mrs. Centani?
Point of order, Mr. President. Would you maybe inform our distinguished colleague that if he does not want the board to accept the recommendation, then no motion is necessary?
Correct. No motion will be no motion, no discussion.
Correct.
Just-
I could have let it die.
Yeah.
But I could have let it die, but someone is simply just going to make the motion so we can discuss it, but I don't want it to pass. So I'll gladly rescind my, my motion.
No, if no motion is made, it dies. No motion has been made. We'll move on to the next item. 4.25, discussion and or action concerning proposals for internet services. Dr. Chasson?
I was looking for the proposed recommendation, Mr.
Hold
Spencer.
on.
Excuse me. Motion to, my apologies. Not used to pulling.
Wait, I think, Mr. Guidry, you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that we need representation. We're involved in a lawsuit, and the timing of that lawsuit requires that we appoint special counsel in the very near future. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Lawsuit has been filed. The attorney who normally represents us has indicated a conflict of interest, so he's no longer representing us, so we're without representation if no action's taken.
Okay. Mr. Guidry, really quickly, because I know we're off topic since we've went to another agenda item, but I just noticed that the attorney was out of Lake Charles, and I just would like to see if we could possibly get someone in Lafayette that could handle that. I find it strange that we skipped a couple cities over. That was my only concern, and I was going to address that. But if we could just look for someone that has that specialty for taxes, but yet in Lafayette.
I think we have at this point.
The attorneys in Lafayette?
Correct.
They have an office here, because I couldn't find one online. Everything lists Lake Charles.
No. What I'm saying, Dr. Chasson, is that we have considered Lafayette. Sales tax is an area similar to school systems. There's basically there's about 3 law firms in the state that handle sales tax collections for the Central Collection Agency.
Okay.
One is in Baton Rouge. That's the one who normally represents us. There's one in Lake Charles, which is the one we're recommending. And there's a third one that represents the coastal parishes.
Okay.
That's not to say they're the only 3, but they probably cover the school districts that don't use the district attorney's office.
Okay.
So with that said, it doesn't leave us, and we're satisfied, we're happy to use this firm, but from a specialty standpoint, there are only a couple of firms to choose from that have the experience that we're looking for, which is specific to central sales tax collection agencies, not representing the taxpayer, but the other side, representing the sales tax collection agency.
Okay.
There's really only a handful of firms that specialize in that.
Okay, so my question to you now is, the words, so it's not to say.
Point of order, Mr. President. We've moved on. If someone would like to make a motion to go back, it would certainly be in order at this time.
Do we have a motion to go back to the agenda item?
Not at all, but it was brought up by the president, so hence I thought we were allowed the discretion.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Right. Well, I was letting Mr. Guidry make his point, but we'll go ahead and move on to the next agenda item, and we can bring this back up again, Mr. Guidry, if need be. The agenda item we were discussing is 4.25, discussion and action concerning proposals for internet service. That was pulled by Dr. Chasson.
Right. Mr. Spencer, I was looking for
We need a motion, sir.
Motion to accept.
Thank you. The motion on the floor is that the board approves the highest rated proposal in response to RFP number 51-20 as attached in the public content section of this agenda item. We have a motion by Dr. Chasson. I need a second.
A second.
Ms. Morrison, any public comment on this matter?
Hi, again, board, thank you so much. And I wanted to say, this is my 3rd meeting I've been here, and God bless you all for your service. We really appreciate what you guys do here. I'm Joan Dubison. I represent Cox Communications, and I see that we were the winning bidder on the internet service. We would like to thank you for the award. We graciously accept it. We're the current provider. We have a long history with the school board of trouble-free service, and we certainly appreciate that. We would like to request a copy of each bidder's response formally. And that's all I had on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that normal? That's normal.
Dr. Chasson, I'd like to see if you could modify your motion, 4.25.
Go ahead.
I move that the board accepts the evaluation committee recommendation and awards RFP 51-20 to Cox Communications for internet services. That is different than what was on the board.
Yes, sir, that was my initial question for the entire thing. I didn't know who had received the award, because I went through the recommendation.
Okay.
So, yes, you can amend it to that.
Are you good, Ms. Morrison? Okay, thank you. We can continue. I need it for the next one.
And it's the same thing for the next one. Okay.
Mr. Santani.
Mr. Spencer, I'm not going to belabor this point. A simple email tomorrow will be sufficient. I would like a description of how you guys scored vendor experience in the Louisiana public sector. I noticed that LUS got a significantly lower score despite being a public sector utility. So I just want, making that up wouldn't have made any difference to who won the RFP, so I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to belabor it. But could you guys please just send me an email describing how those points were awarded? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santani. Any more board member comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
See again. Who they were? I think. Internet, yes.
Nine for, none against.
Motion carries. Next item, 4.26, discussion and/or action concerning wide area network proposals. Dr. Chasson, you have the motion.
I move that the board accepts the committee's evaluation for, was it 5220? What is it? Recommendation and awards for RFP 5220 to Unity Fiber for wide area network services.
We have a motion.
A second.
Second by Mr. Santani. Any public comment on this item?
Oh, thanks. Now you can hear me. I'm Brian Dupree. I'm an attorney at Gordon Arata, and I'm here with Cox Communications Louisiana. I won't take up any more of your time except to say that we noticed some inconsistencies, and Ms. Dubuisson is going to try to explain them more fully to you guys.
Okay, thank you. I promise I'll be brief. I know it's getting late. On behalf of Cox, we would respectfully ask the board to reconsider the recommendation as the award was given. We are confident that Cox should have been the winner based on the scoring criterion. Based on the scoring, Cox was the best priced option and won 2 out of 3 pricing categories, including the full 30 points on the 10 gig option, which was the highest weighted category in the bid. Cox is clearly the best priced option for Lafayette Parish schools and therefore the best for the taxpayers. The scoring ratings for vendor experience, which Mr. Santani had referenced, in the Louisiana public sector we feel are completely incorrect. Cox should have scored the highest in this criterion, yet we received the lowest score. Cox serves more public sector customers in the Acadiana region and across Louisiana than any other bidder, including 2 of the largest municipalities in the state of Louisiana. The scoring for vendor experience rated the only bidder who doesn't serve any schools in Lafayette Parish, and only one municipality got the highest on this rubric, as you can see there. On the scoring for installation plan and description of the WAN backbone bandwidth, we believe also this scoring to be faulty. We recommend that the school board carefully review each bidder's response and review the corresponding scoring. We also would like copies of all scoring notes and copies of each bidder's response, respectfully. Thank you.
Mr. Spencer, I have the same question as the last time because I'm even more perplexed that LUS scored so well in the vendor experience in Louisiana public sector on the WAN service as opposed to the internet service. So, again, simple email tomorrow is fine, but I'm very interested to see what the rationale and the grading criteria were.
Okay, all right. Any more board members? Dr. Chasson? You're just the belle of the ball tonight, Dr. Chasson.
I'd like to rescind my motion. Someone else can make it.
Okay, Ms. Morrison, you good? All right. Motion is rescinded.
Based on the committee's recommendation, I'll move for approval of the highest bid.
Okay. Same motion, different maker. We have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Mr. Angel that we approve, seconded by Dr. Aguilar.
I do want to make it, well, I'll wait for public.
Mr. Spencer?
This is E-rate eligible. That's funding, a grant.
Correct.
90% of the cost. We're on a very tight timeline. We have to have a binding agreement in place by March 25th. I've been trying to get a binding agreement on a telephone service for this district for 4 months now. So, I mean, I have concerns that the back and forth on the contract may really push us tight, so.
Any more public comment on this? Motion is the same, to approve. Mr. Angel?
I just want to make a comment, Mr. President, that I find it strange that when it comes to public experience at the public center, in this case, Lafayette Utilities received 20 out of 20, and in the other one they received 4 out of 30 or something. It's just kind of strange to me. That's just a comment.
Dr. Chasson?
But Mr. Angel, so my question is to you, well, Mr. President, my question would be to Mr. Angel, wouldn't that mean we want to back up and take a look at it? That would be my concern. I don't want to go forward with approving. I'd even like to go back to the previous one. I just want to be sure that when everyone can look at the points earned, that they're justifiable. And they don't get questioned quite often, but in this case, I think we would want to hold up. But I understand what he's saying, but I'd rather be sure we get it absolutely correct. Because I know for the companies, it's about the money, but I'd just prefer to get it right.
Ms. LaRue, you had a question? Comment?
Yes. Who was on the committee that reviewed these proposals?
Mr. Spencer, could you answer that question, please?
Laurie Rees, Latika McGee, Lindsay Keeley, Daryl Corvell, and Chris Chasson.
He actually spells it different. No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. Mr. Guidry.
Yes, I just had a question for Mr. Spencer with regards to timing.
Go ahead, sir.
If the RFP is not awarded, what happens to the E-rate funding and the E-rate process from a timing standpoint? Because I know at one point we were up against a deadline. So just want the board to be aware of what may happen or will happen in either event, in either case.
In the event that we don't have a contract by March 25th, then we will have to seek a month-to-month contract with each provider, and then we'll have to redo the RFP next year.
Will it still qualify for the E-rate funding on a month-to-month basis?
As far as I know, I can double-check with my consultant.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Centani?
Mr. President, other board members, as we work through this, I would point out that we have a meeting 6 days from now. Is that sufficient time? If this gets approved on February 18th instead of February 12th?
I certainly would hope so. It's just recent experience.
I understand.
The contract is
I
drawn,
understand.
but I would certainly think so.
So just, that's an option for anybody considering holding off on approving tonight.
Ms. LeBeau?
That was going to be my question. Have we discussed the month-to-month option, or is that an option even on the table if we don't have a contract in place by then, by March 25th?
We haven't had that discussion specifically with the group that actually advises us on how to go about the E-rate process. They told us there would be a way to continue. So dollar-wise, we would be in the same place, but month-to-month, and again next year, is actually quite a bit of resources and staff time to go through this process. So, but dollar-wise, we would be equivalent going month-to-month.
Thank you.
Ms. Morrison?
I have a question about the committee members. Do they review each other's scores or findings? Do they have like a conversation about this is how I'm rating this company versus, or they score them, no one knows what each other scored, and someone else calculates the votes?
Actually, in several of these processes that I've participated in, not this one, but in some that I've been in, okay, each individual spends a great deal of time going over and scoring ahead of time. And then you get together and you have a consensus. You reach a consensus, or you can simply use their scorecards mathematically. Actually, Ms. Keeley, who was just up here, has a different process where everyone gathers and you reach a group census to do the scoring. So we didn't invest a ton of time up front and then just plug the numbers into the calculator. We spent a great deal of time discussing it as the committee. I was there to be sure everything ran smoothly and that I felt like we could justify the scores and everything that we did. Okay, so like the request for notes, there are no notes. Okay, it was a committee meeting and we reached consensus on those scores.
Thank you.
Any more board member comment on this motion? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Six for, 3 against.
Motion carries. Before we adjourn, it is brought to my attention, Dr. Aguilar, Actually, we bring back 4.23, discussion and our action concerning Resolution 02-20-1961, employment of special counsel for LPSS Sales Tax Office. Dr. Aguilar?
In light of Mr. Guidry's concern about the need for an attorney immediately, I'd like the board to reconsider this motion. Yes.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any public comment on this item? Any board member comment that we
The motion is for reconsideration?
Correct. We have to-
Which
we
is
have-
approval, correct?
correct? No, we have to
No.
make a motion to bring it back up again.
Okay.
And that takes, this is to go back to the item. Can we make the motion to just go ahead and consider it, or do we have to make a motion to go back to this item? Yeah. Right, so we got Dr. Shasso?
Yes, point of parliamentary inquiry. Is this the correct procedure? I'd like that answered. And that's a preferred motion, so I'd like that question answered.
Is your motion?
So I'd like to make a motion that the board adopt Resolution 02-20-1971, retaining Stutz and Laverne as special counsel for the sales tax office regarding various items regarding sales tax collections to be required on as a need basis.
Second.
You good with that? Sure. Now that we have the motion, any public comment? Any board member comment? Dr. Shasso?
I'd like to offer a substitute motion that the board seek special counsel located in Lafayette.
Second.
We have a motion that we seek counsel within Lafayette Parish by Dr. Chasson, seconded by Mrs. Santani. Any public comment? Before I ask for any board member comment, the superintendent and Mr. Guidry is telling me we are going to need representation. We go to court in April, whether we go to outside counsel or we consider using Hammonds and Seals, we're going to have to make a decision. We go to court quickly. So, Ms. LeBeau? Dr. Chasson?
Yeah, this is not to negate our process, but if a firm is the best, then I want the best. I don't care where they're located. But there's specific comments that when you speak, I hear, so that's not to say someone here can't do it, but we know of those firms. But I'd like to seek possible options. If you guys go searching and can't find someone that we deem worthy to represent us, then sure, just go ahead and go with the other firm. But it's those little keywords. You know, indefinite was in one of the agenda items. Folks don't see that. Not to say someone here can't do it. Well, I'd like to see if we can say someone here can do it. That's my only thing. Yeah, and if it passes or fails, I'll be happy either way. I just would prefer that we at least look, as opposed to just assuming no one here can do it.
Ms. LeBeau?
Is the attorney that has the conflict in Lafayette Parish?
Is the attorney that has the conflict?
Is in Baton Rouge, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So they're not in Lafayette Parish. We're not already giving
Correct.
that work to somebody in Lafayette Parish.
Correct.
Okay, that was my clarification. Thank you.
Mr. Guidry?
I just wanted to mention, in order to look or seek out those attorneys, that would require an RFQ process. You're talking about 4 weeks minimum.
Correct.
And then beyond that, the reason, the timing on this was when the taxpayer filed a request for refund, on that day, the attorney could no longer represent us. That just occurred. Within a matter of a week, that taxpayer had filed a lawsuit. So it's not something that, has been sitting around for a while. This is something that just occurred, and is the reason why, and we came to the board immediately, the next available board meeting, because we need to respond quickly.
Mrs. Centani.
I would again remind my colleagues that there's a board meeting next week, 6 days from now,
Correct.
where we may approve this resolution employing special counsel at that time.
Ms. LeBeau?
Is the RFQ with the law firm, or is it that individual? Is he a solo practitioner, or is there other individuals in his law firm?
It's a law firm. Mrs. Stutes is one of the partners in that firm, but it is a firm.
No, but the conflicted attorney, is the RFQ, was that for their law firm to represent us, or just that attorney in particular? See the distinction?
The RFQ that
that
to
this
replace
current
him?
attorney, is under, that is conflicted out. Was the RFQ for their firm to handle matters for us, or that individual attorney?
Well, the resolution is for
No. My
that-
question is the one that's conflicted out, the attorney that can't represent
Right,
us.
mhm.
Okay, the RFQ that we currently have or had with that attorney to represent us, is that still a valid RFQ? It's just he can't handle it because he's conflicted out. Is that my understanding?
he can't handle it because there's a conflict of interest.
Okay, is there another attorney in his firm that could put up a Chinese wall and represent us so that we don't have to go out and find another firm, is my question.
I don't know if I believe he's the only attorney.
He's a solo
Yes,
practitioner. Okay,
yes.
that was my question.
I
Thank
was
you.
responding about the one we were
new attorney.
recommending, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Last question.
Did we do an RFQ for the current attorney?
I'm not sure. That firm's been representing us
For a long time.
for
Okay.
decades. So I don't know how they originally got the business.
So we wouldn't do an RFQ for this current situation, so how do we know of this Lake Charles attorney?
As I mentioned, there's two law firms
Right.
in the state, other than the one that we're using, that pretty much represent the sales tax collection agencies in the state, and they're one of those. We're aware of them because they attend the Sales Tax Association conferences. They present at those conferences. And so, in that regard, we're familiar with them.
Now, are you familiar, or someone else that you know familiar?
Our director of sales tax and our audit manager.
So someone else made the recommendation?
Correct.
To get, okay.
All right, we're going to go to the vote. On this agenda item, a yes means no, and a no means yes. So if you want to not move forward with this attorney, you vote yes. If you want to go ahead and hire this attorney, you vote no, and we go back to the original motion. Madam Secretary, I call for the vote. Right, the substitute motion, a yes means we wait, a no means we go back to the original and we can hire the attorney that they're recommending. You can change your vote. I'm voting no. You gotta hire the attorney now.
3 for, 6 against.
The motion fails. We will now go back to the original motion. That the board approves the highest rated proposal in response, nope, it's not the right one. Four point 23, the original motion was that the board adopts resolution 02-20-1971 retaining Stutz and Laverne as special counsel to the LPSS Sales Tax Office in various issues in the areas of sales tax collection to be required on an as-needed basis. The motion was made by Dr. Aguilar and seconded by Mr. Angel. Any public comment on this matter? Do we have any more board comment on this matter? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Let's get it. Oh yeah. Brick gonna do much better in March. We don't have this nonsense. That is. Yeah, we ain't gonna have this free fall.
Nine for and none against.
The motion carries unanimous. That is our meeting for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Meeting adjourned.